Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10, I had to think there, of my Genealogy Live interview series. Tonight I got the one woman who seems to be doing it all: podcast, uh, website, blog posts, very popular audiences. It's Amy Johnson Crow. So,
Well,
hello, Amy.
hello, Daniel. Thank you for having me on your show.
And thanks for coming on. I was very honored that you agreed. And like I always say, I'm amazed anyone agrees to wanting to come on to mine. But anyway, I'm not going to say no, so let's get into it. So,
All right.
uh, for anyone watching that might know who you are, could you possibly give a little introduction to yourself?
Sure. So, as you said, my name is Amy Johnson Crow. I've been doing genealogy. Well, for myself, I've been doing genealogy since the early 90s. I started doing it professionally in, well, the mid 90s, because once I started getting into it, I was just grabbed hook, line, and sinker. It was just all in. Um, so for a few years, I was doing client research like a lot of professional genealogists do. Then as my kids got older, I went back to school, finished my degree, and I was actually planning on being a genealogy librarian. That's actually what my degree is in. I have a degree in history and a degree in library science. Um, other opportunities came up, ended up working for a couple of different um, genealogy companies. Both of them you might know, they both begin with the letter A. Um, yeah, so for a while I did work at Ancestry, and then I left there, went back out on my own. But really, when I left Ancestry, really focused more on the education side, because that's really what I love to do. So got back into blogging. And since my family has said that I basically was born talking, doing the podcast was kind of a no-brainer for me. So started doing the podcast and just loving it, absolutely loving it. Oh, and by the way,
And
so I probably should, do that whole thing of mentioning that my podcast is called Generations Cafe.
oh
So,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Get it out there because I do listen to it. I am one of your listeners,
Oh, thank
and
you.
I do subscribe for the 52 ancestors. Although they have just been sitting there, and I will eventually get around to writing about them.
Hey,
uh,
that's all right.
yeah, but I like that. It's flexible. Like it's not like a deadline thing where you have to have everything done. It's not like an assignment really. You're not going
Right.
to say, right, I have to have this and this done for Amy this week or something. It can be done at any time.
Yeah, and that was kind of the whole thing for those who might not be familiar with the 52 ancestors. It was actually a blogging prompt that I really started just for myself back in like 2014. It's been a while, and it's 52 ancestors in 52 weeks. And really what I was trying to do was come up with a way to start blogging more often and more regularly. And I thought, I can blog about one ancestor a week, whether it's, more of a write up of their life, or if I have a picture or a document or just, something. It was just something really to keep me accountable. And I announced it on my blog, and some people got really excited about it. They're like, hey, do you mind if we try this too? And I'm like, sure. And it just kind of blew up. Well, the first year we did it, it was just, I don't want to say a free for all, but it was very free form. We'll say that. And then the next year, that was when I started adding the themes or the prompts. And it's not like a requirement, and it's not like, well, um, let's say, I'm trying to think what the theme was for this week. It's favorite place. I mean, that's pretty open-ended, but you could write about a favorite place where your ancestors are from, or a favorite place from when you were growing up, or maybe a favorite place to go research. It's really whatever idea that theme sparks. And if it doesn't spark anything with you, well, then write about something else. I'm not grading these things. It's really just a way to help people not have that, oh my gosh, I know I should be blogging, but I have no idea what to write about. It's just a nice little nudge.
Oh yeah. And I did, and I think it's like last year's I was on. I was so like on a roll for like week 1 to 6, and then it all just fell apart because school being the lovely thing that it is got in the way, and obviously that had to take a back seat among
Yeah.
a lot of things, annoyingly. But it was only today that the genealogy book came back for me because I had been out of it for a while, and just sort of but it's like trying to start, one of those old cars, and you had to like turn the key and just a few times for it to start.
Right. Get it going, get it going.
And so it came back, and I had some interesting leads to go down. So I'm very looking forward to sitting down and doing a bit more on that. But yeah. So I do listen to your podcast, and I will eventually get around to watching the Wander method that you've been posting about in the group. So how did you get into genealogy?
So I'm very blessed that when I was growing up, I was really close with my paternal grandmother, and she was kind of like the unofficial family historian. I mean, she never went out and did any research or put together any charts or anything like that, but she did the other kind of work. The woman labeled photographs. I mean, yeah, right? So, and she was the keeper of the family stories. She was the one who maintained the family Bible. So whenever a new grandbaby was born, she's writing it down in the Bible. So I grew up around that. And also when I was younger, and this is definitely going to date myself, it was when the original version of Roots came out, the version with LeVar Burton. Okay. And it seemed like all of the United States was getting caught up in the thought of doing family history, doing genealogy, because I think it was really the first time that it captured the imagination of people and got them thinking about their own families having a history. That family history wasn't something just for well-established families or well-to-do families. It really, literally, every family has a story. And I think that really kind of got people thinking more about that. So I was kind of swept up in that when I was much younger. But that's really what got me started, was listening to Grandma's stories and seeing the pictures that she shared, and just all that, just kind of being immersed in it. Growing up, my parents both, we would take drives on the weekends, and we would often go to different historical places over the what we call in the United States Memorial Day weekend. We would go to the old family cemeteries and tend to them and everything, have picnics in the cemetery. So all of that was like perfectly normal to me as a child. It wasn't until I became an adult that I realized that not every family took their children on picnics to the cemetery, but hey, it got me where I am today. But it was just sort of a very immersive thing. And it was just the way things were. And that's really what got me going with it.
I'm sorry, I had to laugh at the fact that your children to a cemetery. Let's have a picnic next to John Smith, shall we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like
Adelaide over there.
Yeah, who are we having lunch with today? And after I had kids, my daughter and I, for a while, we were doing, I don't know if you're familiar with geocaching, and you leave these little objects and you hide them, and it's a way to get like out of the house and actually doing something. And so I discovered I was doing the same thing with my daughter. I was taking her to all of these cemeteries, whether it was to do research or to get some cool photographs, or if it was geocaching, because that's kind of a popular place to hide geocaches. So my daughter is also, I mean, she can identify symbols on tombstones. She can pick out the zinc, the white bronze markers. It's like, yes, proud mom moment.
Yeah, no, I'm sure as a parent being a genealogist, that would probably make you proud. And I'm thinking, yes,
Yes.
be on. But yeah, I'd say for me, kind of, I I I do kind of share a bit about, going to all these graveyards and, seeing all, because my gran is buried in a cemetery in County Kerry, and we, go down there, and I'd see, like, we just go and do up her headstone and just the plot that she's buried in. And I'd always kind of, that would kind of be the time when I kind of ask, the stories about that, kind of about my nan, because obviously I didn't meet her. She died in '94, so I was born 9 years later, so I never met her. So it was kind of a way of connecting with her in a way through the stories that I was being told about her. And it wasn't until, recently, well, recently enough, that in actually the unit up there is actually a bag that my grandmother owned with all of, birth certs, references, bits about her life, graduation photo in there. And I'm kind of thinking, and you were going to tell me about this when?
When? Yeah.
And I don't think it crossed her mind, but I was just kind of looking through. I was looking for something, and I was going to say, "Mum, what is that bag?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, that's Mum's." Okay, care to tell more?
Yeah, it would have been nice to
No,
share.
yeah, just a little, and it's like, and it had my favorite, well, one of my favorite photos of my grandmother in there, which is her graduation photo from college, which I actually animated with the MyHeritage, kind of, the animation thing. Oh my God, Mum would not just stop smiling at it. She actually, it was so nice, and the fact that she felt that her mother was actually there looking at her smiling, and it kind of blew me away when I looked at it, because it was the first time I kind of seen her move. So it was just nice, and yeah, so that was kind of how I that was kind of probably one bit, and then obviously after the death of a granduncle of mine, coming in the car journey home, and just looking on a family tree, just googling family tree maker things a few days later, and then I started. So, but it's not about me, it's about you today. So, what resources have you found most helpful in your research?
Oh, wow. Resources. Wow, that's a really tough question. I have to say right now, my favorite resource to use, and it really is my go-to, is the Family Search Wiki. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there's a section on Family Search. You go, you can click on the search tab, and it brings up this menu. Well, one of those tabs is the Research Wiki, and it has like 96,000 articles about places and topics about genealogy. So whenever my research takes me into a new location, or I'm doing a new type of research, I try to go there, because it just gives you a really good grounding on, okay, now you're working in Jay County, Indiana. Okay, well, when did the records start, and who keeps those records? And, just a really good grounding, so that you're not spending a bunch of time looking for birth records in 1840 when they didn't start keeping birth records there until 1882. It kind of makes things a little bit more efficient. So that's probably overall my favorite resource. But then after that, it would just be a matter of what my current project is. Because, I mean, there
Hmm.
are so many resources out there, and some of them can be so specific. In fact, I was looking today at a collection of African American funeral programs. None of them are members of my family, but just going through this collection, it's like, wow, if my family were in here, if my family was in that location, and so, and I think that that's something that I think more people should do. I'm not going to give the line about, oh, it's not all online. Well, okay, fine, yeah, it isn't all online, but I think that where we often create sort of our own brick walls is that we don't expand past our favorite websites. We don't expand past Family Search and Find My Past and My Heritage and Family Search. We get those handful of sites that we go to all the time, but then we forget to look at all of the things that are offered by libraries and archives and genealogy societies and individuals and all sorts of groups out there that can really help us with our research. It might not have 10 billion records on that site, but I tell you, if they have a dozen records for my family, if they have, the one record for my family that I'm really, really looking for, okay, that's like the best resource ever. And I think that that's something that we need to do more often, is expand beyond just the big name genealogy sites. For
Hmm.
as wonderful as they are, they don't have everything.
No, and I can certainly echo your point on not everything being online. It isn't, and kind of I think that's kind of potentially one of the myths about genealogy. Kind of thinking, oh, everything's online. No, it isn't,
Yeah.
because just today, a cousin tagged me in a post on Facebook, and because my great grandfather was a commander in the IRA in Ireland during the 1920s,
Mhm.
and there it now it's not him reading it. He had wrote things down, and so like it was this person reading what it was basically him reading his words.
Oh, wow.
And I was kind of thinking, God, and it was like it went from family life to like ambushes, a particular one called the Burglary ambush, and another one like it was just different aspects and different points through his career in the IRA and just his background. And I was kind of thinking, God, I'd really love to, listen to these, like, find more out. Little did I know they are not online, and I have to go to the military archives to listen to them. So whenever COVID restrictions relax a little,
Yeah.
I will be hightailing it up there. Because myself and mom, it's kind of since I started, it's kind of been a shared thing that we like to do, and especially with the lead of where we went today was kind of thrilling. So it was, it would be really nice if we could go up there at some point and listen to these, because I guarantee you there'll be something that he said that I haven't worked out yet that could
Mm-hmm.
give a detail, because his name was Patrick and his father's name was Patrick and his father's name was Patrick.
Because why not?
Yeah, and I have two Patricks, potential baptisms, and I don't know which one is the right one. So I am waiting to see if something crops. Someone kind of says, "Oh, well, this is who you should be looking at."
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment, I am stuck. Very much so. So one day I will revisit this, but the lead I'm on at the moment is quite thrilling, and it's like that novel that you don't really want to put down, or that
Right.
Netflix series that you don't really want to stop watching.
Right. Exactly.
Uh, that's what I'm on at the moment, only with genealogy. So I don't really. I will go on to it, but obviously not straight away. So what I think is probably self-explanatory, this one, but what projects or ventures are you currently pursuing?
what projects am I currently pursuing? Wow, I've got so many. So of course, professionally, I've got the podcast and the blog. I have my membership called Generations Connection. So I've got classes going on in there. Personally, in my own research, I have a couple of projects. One of them, I'm helping a family member, a married-in family member. I'm helping her trace her family. She was adopted, and we knew we had her original birth certificate, so we knew her biological mother's name going into this. But knowing the name and actually identifying her, and that actually turned out to be a little trickier than we thought it was going to be at first, because it turns out that not only is my friend adopted, her biological mother was adopted. So it's working through those two generations of adoptions. The first one, we got that figured out, but then identifying, then it would be the biological grandmother, getting her identified and figuring that all out. So that's been probably my biggest research project. I've got another project I need to get back to. A couple of years ago, my parents sold their house that they had lived in for 30 some years, moved into a senior living community. And of course, that involved a lot of downsizing. So I've still got a ton of papers to go through, and photographs and scrapbooks and things like that. So I need to get back to organizing some of that, getting a lot of it scanned and sent out to family members. But those are my two big, personal genealogy projects right now.
And as soon as you kind of said, I need to get back to it's almost as if I could clone myself.
Yes.
I'd set you off doing that and you off doing that, and just hope that you'd. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back now.
Oh, thank God. I'm really hoping this doesn't go, because it's so annoying.
Oh, no. Oh, no, Daniel. Daniel, we lost you again. I don't know if I'm still in the stream, but hopefully Daniel comes right back. I know he was having trouble just as we were getting started. And now I think we've lost him completely. Oh, no. Well, I'm going to hang out here for a couple of minutes. Hopefully Daniel comes back. I know that just as we were getting started, he had to reboot the router. So hopefully that's what he's doing. I'm going to hang in here. Yeah. So I say we've got seeing who we have here in the chat, leaving some comments. We've got Florian and Teresina. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Teresina. I hope I'm doing that right. And we have Alexander. Any advice on going from doing your personal genealogy to professional? If you're really thinking about going professional, thinking about it as a business, because there's more to doing professional research than just being a good researcher. I mean, yeah, you need to do that, but you also have to think about, okay, how do I keep track of hours? How do I put a research report together? Just all of those more business side things. I would also suggest anybody thinking about doing professional research would be really thinking about what type of research you want to do. It's so tempting to say, hey, I'm just going to do any kind of research for anybody, but that makes it really hard to market yourself because people tend to want, a specific type of researcher. So it seems a little counterintuitive to say, okay, I'm only going to do research in this state or this county, or I'm going to do this type of research. It can seem a little counterintuitive to make it smaller, but you generally end up being more successful. And yay, Daniel is back. Yay. I've just been kind of rambling.
Go for it. Honestly, be the golden rule now. If I disappear, that would be the ideal thing to do. Just take any questions and anything else. Right. So now that I'm back, and don't go again, I'm looking at, well, sort of looking at you, Router. But anyway, is there anything that you now know that you wish you knew when you started?
Oh, I wish I knew when I started to pay more attention to the more recent generations. And I think everybody says this no matter how much they talk to their parents or talk to their grandparents. I wish I would have talked to them more. I just lost my dad last August. And even though, obviously I'd been doing genealogy, been exploring the family history since the early 90s, and he didn't die until 2020. I mean, there's a good overlap there, but so I was asking him questions about his childhood and, how he met mom and how he proposed and, all that good stuff. But it's still never enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wish I would have talked to more family members earlier. I'm not even going to say that I wish that I would have cited my sources better from the beginning because, yeah, I mean, back when I was getting started, we did have genealogy software, okay, but the fields that most of them gave us for a source citation was like literally 8 characters long.
No.
Yeah, so I had some rather creative abbreviations for some of my source citations. You just kind of make it up as you go along. So that just kind of went along with it. But yeah, I think that's, I wish I would have gotten more of the stories when I was then transitioning into doing professional genealogy. I wish that I had started more with having a good system, keeping track of hours. And that's actually why I decided not to go back into a lot of client research, was because when I finally started tracking all of my hours, including, okay, I need to analyze what this client has sent me. Oh, I need to compile everything that I have found and analyze it and put it into a format that they can understand. Once I started including all of that, it's like, this is just way too many hours. And I wasn't billing for all of that. So, and I think that that's pretty common with people transitioning into professional research, that they don't account for really all of the hours that they're spending for that client.
Yeah.
So, but that's really what, if I had to do it over again, those are the things I would have changed.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know how you're kind of saying about citing the sources. I feel I've been hit by a truck. Because I am just getting into, citing my sources. I'm now mixing, my mum's side and my dad's side all into the one tray and making a working tray. and putting out all the stops, doing all the source citing, and when it comes, I can do everything else, but when it comes to the source citing, oh my god, it's yeah.
And I'm glad that you said that, because I know that a lot of people feel really overwhelmed by citing sources. Yeah, and honestly, and I'm going to be accused of heresy right now. Okay, so brace yourself. I really do not care where you put the comma. I just don't. Um, the goal of, I mean, the whole purpose of a citation is to show where you found a particular piece of information and making it clear what you looked at. So, did you look at the action, say you're looking at a will, okay? Did you look at the actual will, or did you look at the abstract that some genealogy society published in a book? That, those are two different things, the actual will versus this published book. As long as you can make that clear, what you looked at, and not make it appear that you looked at the will when all you looked at was the book, as long as you can make that clear, you're golden. You can, seriously, you can change formatting later. But as long as you get in the habit of the core elements that you need, what type of record did you look at? Where did you find it? What is it that it's a part of? So I looked at the will of John Brown. It's in Will Book A, page 123, and it's at the Perry County, Ohio Probate Court. Or I saw this image in this collection on Family Search. Once you get into the habit of just thinking about it as elements and not being so worried about particular formats, then it starts to become easier. And then it's just a matter of practice, and it just becomes habit. But don't sweat the formatting. Like I said, that's the part where I'm going to be accused of heresy, but that's okay. It's all right.
But people will kind of say, she knows what she's talking about. She's done this for she knows what she's on about. And that's the main thing. So what aspect of genealogy do you love the most? So like finding old photos, looking at records, hearing stories?
Yes, to all of the above. I mean, it's all of it. I love finding the stories of people who have been forgotten. The research project that I did my senior year of college, I was working on researching a group of African American Civil War veterans and uncovering their stories. And I mean, obviously, I'm not talking to them. They've been gone for a long, long time. But being able to go through their records and pulling out their stories, their experiences, seeing what they went through, that to me is really what genealogy is all about. It's finding those, not only the connections in terms of relationships, but seeing what people went through. I really do think that it helps. I don't know about you, but for me, it reminds me that we're all human. We all have shared experiences. We all have families. We all have, and whatever those family relationships look like. But people still want to provide for their families. They still want to have healthy relationships, whether they actually do or not. They want to explore. They want to do things. And being able to see those who came before us having those same experiences, that's, I really enjoy that part of genealogy. With my business and what I do professionally, for me, there is nothing better than having one of my members or somebody who's listened to the podcast or whatever say, wow, I never thought of it that way. I can't wait to go try this. To me, that's just like, you made my day. That's the best thing that you could tell me, that something I said gave you a spark to go try something. I just love that.
Yeah. And well done, because you actually answered one of the ones I was actually going to ask down the line, but that's fine. You got a tip. Everyone got a 2 and 1 now.
Hey.
So, don't worry about it. So if you feel comfortable sharing this, what's an interesting story or event that you've discovered about your ancestors?
Ooh, that I've discovered about my ancestors. Wow. I've said for a long time that I descend from a very long line of boring ancestors, and I say that very tongue in cheek because I think that everybody has a story. Probably the most outlandish. Okay, well, that wasn't the word I was going to use, but now that I've used it, it makes me think of something else. I do have my third great grandmother, Matilda DeBolt Skinner, Crossan Brown McFillin. Yeah, she got married a lot. And, trying to track her down. And what's interesting is, with the exception of one census, she always appears in the records with her first husband's surname, even though she married, 3 or 4 times after that. And there might actually be a 5th marriage in there, but I haven't proven that one. And if I do, then I have to relearn how to say her name.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But yeah, she's been interesting to track down because, of course, every time she gets married, presumably she's using a different name. She doesn't always, which in and of itself makes it more difficult to identify her. But yeah, she's been interesting. But what I was going to say, but in terms of big, wild, unusual events would be, and I forget how many generations back, my ancestor was involved. He lived in Western Pennsylvania in the time of the American Revolution. And there were skirmishes between the white settlers and the Native Americans. And he was involved in one of those. It's been written up. There was it was called the Crawford Campaign. And all of the accounts say that he was shot from his horse, dragged away, and never seen again. So, yeah.
I like the bit with, the 3 times great grandmother thing. And you say she married like 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, Matilda DeBolt Skinner, Crossan Brown McFillin. I know of 4, and there might be a 5th.
Oh, brilliant! And I thought it happened like 2 marriages was kind of bad in my family because like my great grandmother.
Oh, they're just getting started.
Yeah, because my great grandmother Bridget Carey, her first husband died, and her second one she married my great great grandfather Patrick Whelan, and her previous married name was Bridget Draper, but her maiden name was Carey. And I spent so long trying to find a marriage between a Bridget Carey and a Patrick Whelan. I couldn't find one. I just did Patrick Whelan and Bridget, and there she was.
There she was.
Draper. And another of my great-granduncles, I think, James Loftus, who I'm having a fun time trying to research the wives, because they both have very common names. You had one called Mary McNicholas, which in Mayo was a very common name. So he was his first, no, he was the second one. Anne Jordan was his first one. So he didn't have any kids between either of them. But for, so that, like, there were 2 marriages there. But, like, that's the worst it's ever gotten. It has not gone beyond 2, but just, like, hearing, Matilda
DeBolt Skinner, Crossan Brown McFillin, yeah.
the fact that that I think the ancestry algorithm must be kind of thinking, are you sure this
Yeah,
person married this
yeah,
many times?
yeah, yeah. You
Uh,
put that tree into family search, and it just kind of goes. Yeah.
yeah, I could see that happening.
Mhm.
Because I think my brain might explode if I was dealing with that. And my mum kind of thinks, oh God, two marriages. And I guarantee you, when I tell her about this afterwards, she's probably gonna think, right, not doing that. uh,
Yeah, that
uh,
line just stops.
she just sort of like, no, not doing it. Your turn now. You deal with this, and I'll come back later. And she leaves me to do like the hard of it, which is fine. So what for anyone watching? I'm getting near the end of my questions, but just because I forgot to say this last week with Vito, if you have any questions, please do get them in now, or you'll miss your chance, and you don't want to do that, ideally. So what type you kind of I think you'll kind of already answer this one. What type of record do you like the most and why?
I love land records. And the reason that I love land records is that at least here in the US, there were so many people who owned land. And the thing about land records, you don't have to own hundreds and hundreds of acres. No, I mean, if you own the lot where your house sits, there should be a record of it. So you have a lot of people creating these records. And if you think of them in total, so you find all of your ancestors' land records, um, you can kind of get a sense of how well they were doing financially because, oh, okay, we're buying more land. Oh, now we're starting to sell it off or we're mortgaging it over and over again. You can see migration because it was pretty common for somebody to buy land ahead of when they moved. So if you can find that first purchase of land in a place, it will often give you where they were coming from. And when they would, years later, when they would move to someplace else, it wasn't unusual to hold on to a piece of land back where they used to live. So that last sale can sometimes tell you where they moved to. So I just love digging through land records.
That's an ironic word to use, digging through land record.
Oh, I wish I could say I intended that. Mm. Or digging through cemetery records. That would
Yeah,
be, yeah. We'll dig through the cemetery records. Just don't dig through the cemetery. They frown on that.
yeah. No, because after I did a presentation in my school, and for anyone watching, you might get a laugh out of this. I was asked uh, how how long it would take to dig a grave,
Hmm.
and I'm kind of thinking, is there something you're not telling me that
Yeah.
you're?
Well, I
Uh,
mean, the question would be: are you digging by hand, or do you have a some sort of machinery involved? That's going to make a difference. That's a
yeah,
good
yeah,
question.
and kind of I was I was kind of thinking, I don't know, and kind of I was being asked about body snatching. This is after I did the presentation. It wasn't during it, but kind of I was asked about body snatching, and I just said, right, go to Susie Lennox. She'll know what she's talking about.
I just got a
Um,
book about body snatching. Yeah.
well, you can either get that and Susie Lennox digging up 1800, excuse me, on Twitter, talks
I
about
will look for her.
body snatching in multiple ways. And Natalie Pitt, as a genealogy stories, actually did an interview with Susie, so she'll be talking about body snatching quite a bit. So there's
I'm
that.
writing
If
that
anyone's
down.
interested in that, I'm just like bringing things up in my mind as they come in because I have not the best memory, so I'll forget otherwise. So we have a question, and it's fun when I get to do this. I can bring it up on screen.
Ooh.
If you want your questions coming up on screen, please do so in the comments, and I can do it like I did like this. Sorry, you can't. Oh, that doesn't look right.
It's right down here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Teresina says, what would you say is the best way to search for land records? I've looked for land records in Maryland where all my maternal line essentially lived. In the very start of counties, I've had difficulties. Okay, so in the US, land records are recorded in the place where the land is located. I should say where the land is located at the time. So that puts a lot of land records in counties. What that county office is called is going to vary by state. In Ohio, for example, it's the county recorder. I don't know what the similar office would be called in Maryland, but they're going to be local/county records. Some of them have actually been digitized and are on Family Search, but you have to go through the catalog. Excuse me. Don't go through the main Family Search where you typically go through the Family Search catalog, and you can find a lot of digitized records there that don't appear in the search part. So you can actually find a lot of land records that way. Some individual counties have digitized some of their older records and put them up on their own websites, but that would be a good time to explore the Family Search Wiki and look at the counties that you're interested in. Again, remembering that it's going to be whatever that county was at the time that that transaction transpired. So if the county changed boundaries and now that land is in a different county, you need to know that. So just be aware of it might actually have been a different county at the time.
Excellent. Okay. So you kind of answered this as well, to kind of touch base with this. What does genealogy mean to you?
Genealogy to me is connection. It's connection to the past, obviously. It's seeing who came before us, not just their names, but their lives, their experiences, their trials, their tribulations, their successes, their failures. And I think that helps put us on a better sense of where we are in sense of time. Not to be too, metaphysical about this, but I think it also helps connect us with the present, because we can start seeing that, oh my gosh, what we've been going through. I mean, thinking about what we've all been going through for the last year with COVID, right? But what did our ancestors go through back in 1918 with the Spanish flu? They had quarantines, they had masks, they lost a lot of their loved ones. And so learning about their experiences kind of makes what we've been going through, it's not easier, but we can see that, okay, people have gone through this before, we can get through this. And also seeing how people have dealt with things in the past, I think that it can help us see each other as more human, as people, and not just, there is so much in the world dividing us. You're on this side and I'm on this side, and all that. But seeing, I really do think that once you start exploring family history, you really do start to see people and their experiences. And I think if more people did that, and we could sort of drop a lot of these really artificial divisions between us, I think that's a good thing. That's what I love about genealogy. Right. And the research. I love digging into records. Let's be real.
And the fact that you could easily stay up to 2 a.m. referencing a tweet from Emmy Brand.
Oh yeah,
of the Hidden Branch. And just that, you can easily stay up to 2 a.m. doing genealogy and not have a problem.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but if it's like anything else, it's just like, I should really sleep. But if it's genealogy, you're just wide awake and
It's
you're
like,
just like,
yeah, no, sleep. Don't, who needs it?
okay. So we have another question coming in from Alexander.
Okay. I'm researching in the UK and soon to embark on researching my grandfather's brothers and sisters. Hey, I always like to see people expanding who they're researching. All apart from granddad were sent to America after the death of both their parents in the mid 40s. Any advice on best place to start looking? Ooh. I would say start with what you know. Do you have your granddad's maybe obituary or anything like that that might reference where his siblings were living in America? That would be my thought. If there are, and that's a tricky time period because the last publicly available census that we have in the US is 1940. And if they didn't come here until after that, you're going to have to wait until next year when the 1950 census gets released. But yeah, I would really start digging into records about whoever was left behind in the UK and see if any of their records might reference some places in America. Hopefully you're not researching like Johnson's or Smith's or, Douglas's or something really, common like that. Ship's manifests, maybe, but again, you're going to have an idea of where they're going into. And that may not be the same as where they ended up because people typically got passage on whatever was cheapest. So they might not have intended on, here's the thing, he didn't know about them. Oh, okay. Yeah, that does complicate things. DNA. Waiting until next year with the 1950 census, because that would cover the entire United States. Of course, you're still going to have the issue of picking out the right set of people. Are there cousins or aunts and uncles or anybody left behind in the UK that their records might reference something? If you know where they were living in the UK when they left for America, maybe, and this is a long shot, maybe getting in touch with someone who's familiar with the history of that area and say, hey, other people who left this area in this time frame, where did they typically go to? Did they go to New York? Did they go to Boston? Did they go to New Orleans? You might be able to tap into something like that, but without having a place, that's going to be a tricky time period, at least for right now, until you get after next April when we release the 1950 census and DNA. If you've done DNA, you might be able to pick up some cousins.
Yeah, I haven't done a DNA test, but unknowingly, and I think it was Terry O'Connell in my interview with Dave Lambert, he has kind of, mentioned the fact that, not many Irish people have DNA.
Oh no, we're losing Daniel again. Oh no, Daniel. Yeah, Nina, I see your comment. Though with the ship's manifest, there may be an address for a relative. That's true. It does help though, being able to narrow it down, knowing what port they came in. That's such a tricky time period when you don't have a location, because trying to make sure that you have the right group of people. Oh no, we lost him. We lost him for real. Oh, I see Florian had posted earlier the link to the General Land Office records. Those are federal records, and it's the very first sale of land from the federal government to a person. So after that one sale, it's not going, the records would not appear on that website. And in fact, that website doesn't have all of the sales, but that's a very specific website, and it's great to use. I do like that site, but and it also wouldn't cover Maryland, because Maryland was one of the original 13 colonies, and the federal records wouldn't have started until you get into the public land states, which would be anything aside from the 13 colonies and states formed from them. So like Kentucky and Tennessee. Hopefully Daniel comes back. Okay, Alexander's asking, which ancestors would you have at a dinner party? I would have both of my grandmothers, because I have my paternal grandmother who taught me all the stories, but I have my maternal grandmother who died before I was born. So I would invite her so I could meet her. I would invite Matilda de Bolt Skinner Cross and Brown McFellin, because, I mean, come on. And let's see, who else would I invite? I would invite, seems like I should have one more. I would probably have one of my Scottish ancestors, one of the ones who came over from Scotland to the United States, just so they could tell me about what life was like in Scotland in the late 1700s, early 1800s, and what the voyage to the United States was like. That's who I would invite.
I see you've been keeping yourself busy, and thank you everyone for keeping Amy entertained. Well, there's a lot of profanity coming out of my mouth at the router. Being this is the third time that I've gone, or is it second? Anyway, so what advice would you give to a young person starting out?
Talk to every relative you can. Talk to all of them. Not only getting the facts, but getting as many stories as possible and recording those. And when I say recording the stories, I think sometimes we make too big of a deal about that, because, we want to do it right. And you do want to do it right. But honestly, get out your phone there in the camera, get out your phone, hit record. Okay. Keep it simple. I would rather have something recorded on my phone and have it than worry about having the right equipment and never getting that story. So I would get the stories. I would let everyone in the family know that I'm interested in the history, because sometimes people don't think about who else might be interested. So tell everyone in the family, hey, I'd love to see the old pictures. I'd love to see, any old documents or anything that you might have, because people just, if they're not into family history, they don't realize that that's what we're really looking for. So just talk to everybody, let them know that you're interested, and tell them what you're interested in. Again, remind them about the photos, and hey, you happen to have this suitcase full of documents from your grandmother. Yeah, you might want to see that. So that's really what I would focus on. But but also just have fun with it. Have fun with it. I know as I've been on my genealogy journey, there's been so much emphasis on you have to cite this exactly like this, and if you don't cite it exactly like this, then you are wrong. That's a lot of pressure. We don't need that in our lives. I would say be creative with how you share it. Just getting all this knowledge, and yeah, the research is fun, but have fun doing something with it, whether that's putting together a video, doing a podcast, doing a blog, putting it out on Instagram, whatever. Just have fun with it and enjoy it. Because I think that the more that your family sees you having fun with it, the more engaged that they're going to want to be with it. And then the more that you learn from them. So yeah, just have fun and talk to everyone.
Yeah. I can relate on, the talk to everyone, because it wasn't until I can't remember what it was for, but I went to my granddad's house and I was, talking to my granddad and, just asking her bits about, the family, and supposedly, and nobody, I don't think, in my family knew about this. She was kind of saying, no, it was actually to her daughter, who I met at a gathering pre-COVID. God, don't we wish we could go back to that?
The before times.
Yes, and she was kind of saying, "Oh, we're going to visit the twins' graves," and I said, "What twins?" And she said, "Oh, my mum had twin brothers." Huh?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I was actually stunned. If you would see me just listening to this, it was like, it'd take a minute to, actually process that, because I hadn't heard anything about that. I didn't even know it had occurred. And I kind of said, "Where are they buried?" And they kind of said, "Oh, in Dungarvan." And I'm kind of thinking, well, I'm not sure if that's right. I'm not dissing it. I never said, "Oh, that's not true," kind of thing. But they had moved to, where they are now. Like, they had married in, I've forgotten where. But the place where they got married is not the same. So, like, where the father was from, the mother stayed in the same place, but the father had moved from County Waterford to another. And like, I'm not sure why they'd be there, but who knows? I'm still waiting to hear more about it. But yeah, it is definitely, talking to others about, the family history, and not being afraid to, wear that badge of, I'm the genealogy nut in the family. Be like, deal with it, kind of thing. And yeah, basically, and comment from Tara Sina. Seen some of those comments about having to cite a specific way. Yeah. So yeah. And I like how you kind of, just the way you said, we don't need this stress in our lives.
No, I mean, seriously, it's doing your family history. Yeah, I mean, it's work. You're doing research. You're trying to be as accurate as possible, but this is a journey of discovery. And if you're stressing out about source citations and how to format them properly, I don't know of anybody who, as they're looking for a way to occupy their free time, they want to pick up a new hobby, pick up a new pursuit. I don't know anybody who says, I want to find an activity where I have to craft really good footnotes. Nobody does that, So yeah, keep them accurate. Learn what the good elements of a citation are, so you can identify those and pull them out, but don't let yourself get stressed over the format of it. And hey, and here's another little tip. Do you know how many formats there are for source citations? I discovered this when I started library school. When I was a history major in my undergrad, we cited the history field cites their sources one way. Library science, being in the sciences, they cite sources completely differently. And my poor brain, my first couple semesters of grad school, it's like, no, these are all wrong. And it felt very cringy, but it's just a format. Learn the elements, call it good.
Right. Now, obviously, with times changing and, more people like me getting into genealogy, obviously, I've been in it 4 years now. Been down that rabbit hole and don't see a way out. Do you, in your own opinion, kind of feel that there's kind of like a sufficient outlet for young genealogists to express themselves and, connect with people their own age in this sort of thing?
Sufficient, I think it depends on how you define sufficient. I think that social media has given us a wonderful outlet and a wonderful way to connect. It used to be back when I wanted to find other people who were interested in genealogy, you had to join a genealogy society. And, they met in person. I mean, because back in the day, we didn't even have our own computers, and the internet as we know it was just getting started. But the fact that we now have social media and we can connect on so many platforms, whether that's Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or Clubhouse or Facebook or, whatever, there are so many ways that we can connect with people. Unfortunately, there are people of my generation and older who don't see the value of social media and also don't see that younger people are interested, but that their interest might look different. So, I remember, I'm kind of the atypical person because I did start when I did with actually doing research, but I was a stay-at-home mom and I was living close to the areas where my ancestors were. So it was very convenient for me to run down to the courthouse. Okay. If my ancestors had been on the other side of the country, that would have been different because back in the day, we didn't have digitized records, right? But I think that some people in the older generations think that young people aren't interested because they aren't doing research exactly the same way that they did. And they don't see that younger people are doing so much more with capturing stories and doing things with that. And just seeing that, like my daughter, she's interested in family history. Now, admittedly, I've obviously worked on her family tree, but, she's married. Does she want to work on her husband's family tree? Well, she's interested, but you know what? She has a new baby at home. So she's at a time of her life where going and doing research is not really a priority, but talking about the stories, getting photographs, things like that, she's all about that. So I think that is a challenge that younger genealogists have of trying to get older genealogists to recognize that what they are doing is just as much genealogy as what they are doing. And I wish that there was a better answer for that.
Yeah. And finally, to end, what do you think is stopping young genealogists from getting into it?
I think for some that they don't know where to start. They see the commercials on TV for Ancestry or My Heritage, and they do a DNA test, which is DNA has brought so many people into the field or into the sphere, but then they don't know what to do next. Mm-hmm. They get their ethnicity estimate, and they're like, oh, and I've got this list of 17,000 people I'm related to. I really think that a lot of the genealogy sites absolutely drop the ball on getting people into going from that, hey, I'm curious about this, but then helping guide them into what those next steps might look like. And I think that's I think that what you're doing, Daniel, I think is wonderful, because you are showing that younger people can do this. And I think having more role models like that, because there are so many younger people who the thought of doing research and all they see is a bunch of older people doing it, they may, if they don't see themselves in it, they don't see themselves represented there, they may not realize it's for them. So I think that the work that you're doing, getting these things out there and showing that, yeah, younger people can do this, that it's okay to be a younger person and do this. I think getting more role models like yourself out there, I think is also going to help.
Yeah. And a comment from Teresina just came in.
Yeah, it's funny that you're saying this. My research was started when the internet was available for records, so social media has played a big part. Yeah, I'm an old person, so I can really relate to the younger genealogists. Yeah, and I don't mean to paint, because technically I'm a Gen X. I am the forgotten generation. It's always millennials and boomers, and it's like, hi, I'm here too. But I remember when I was first starting, and I was in my 20s, and I would go to a genealogy society meeting, and I was the youngest person in the room by decades.
Oh yeah.
I still go into here I am now a grandmother. I still go into genealogy society meetings, and I'm still sometimes the youngest person there. That shouldn't be. But I do think that it is challenging for younger people, because they don't realize what is possible, and they don't have a lot of role models showing them what is possible for them.
Yeah. Another one. I just had to keep bringing this up. Oh dear. But no, like, and I'll happily say, like, the fact that cat's out of the bag and I can talk about it now a little. Obviously, it's funny because some of the points you mentioned are actually, I kind of talked about relatively something similar in my presentation. My very first one.
Yay!
Oh my God. And it's funny, my first one is a pre-recorded one. It's not like a live one. It's just, I'm talking to my camera. Hello, camera. You've looked at me. You've sat on my monitor for I don't know how long, but yeah, I can't wait to do a live one. Yeah. But hopefully I will down the line, whenever it is. And comment from Alexander, there we go. I think. Yeah, I was 15 when I started, so completely I'll get this.
Yep.
And yeah, so hopefully, and I think for me, it's, because, I think it's because when I did that presentation, like in my class, I got the frostiest reception ever. if you poured water, it would freeze in the glass. It wouldn't even hit the floor. It would just like freeze as soon as it was pouring. So it didn't go quite as planned. But I mean, that's the thing. And where you kind of mentioned about role models, I think that's kind of, the thing that was kind of stopping them, because they kind of think, oh, this one dude doing it. And kind of just to kind of bring in this bit with Hayden Brad, there are 29 people between the age of 13 and 25 in that group, all around the world. Like, there are people in the world doing this. Well, it's just a case of, and as well, kind of saying to people my age, Twitter, I found, is ridiculously helpful in the sense that, that's where I'm kind of most well known, probably. I'm not a great Instagrammer. I mean, I do reels, but I'm not even in them yet. I haven't
started reels. They look like such fun, though.
Oh, they are. And I did one on the Irish census. So like the fate of all of them. Who knew you could cram that into 15 seconds?
I saw that. That was impressive.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, where it kind of said, deliberately destroyed, that meant it looked fine, and I thought, great, it's good to go. That should have been mistakenly. So there's that. And, there was kind of one that I did, but I ended up taking it down because I was kind of talking about, young people can do it. And, I was just kind of in an episode where I was kind of, just trying to hammer that point home. And, I felt that, oh my God, I'm just blasting this everywhere and I don't want to annoy people. So I ended up deleting the reel, that one anyway. And I may recreate it. I don't know. But yeah, so that one actually, I think within about an hour that had maybe about I think within about 20 minutes that had about 500 views.
Wow.
When that went up. I don't know if it was the song I used, which was No by Meghan Trainor. That's what I used for that one. It was like, people kind of saying this and then obviously no. But anyway, I'm not sure whether it was a song or, it shared on a lot of private accounts, and obviously I didn't follow them, so I couldn't see it. But it was just interesting to, see that blow up. And the one I did kind of, Call of to Ancestors, which I'm not sure if you had seen that one. It was kind of, the lyrics to a song, Final Breath by Paloma Faith. It was the first 30 seconds of that song. And kind of the first line I know was kind of, I don't know who you are, but I love you. And it's kind of like, the ancestors kind of like talking to you, kind of as if, obviously watch it after this if you wish, but kind of
I'll go look for that.
Kind of ancestors talking to you in a sense, that kind of talking to you through that song. And I was just actually walking into school and I was kind of thinking, it actually kind of seems as if, your ancestors are actually talking to you in that song. And I have a few other ideas for reels bubbling around, but I'll eventually get around to doing them. And I think with that, rambling on about my things, I shall end. So thank you so much, Amy, for coming on. I'm ecstatic, and the fact that the internet went down a few times just kind of made me really wish I had quicker and better internet, but I can't do anything about that.
It happens, and I appreciate you inviting me here on your live stream. This has been a lot of fun.
Good. And that was the kind of one thing I kind of hope. The one thing I really hope is that I don't bore you to death, and then you're kind of thinking, right, I'll just I'll answer them quickly so that I can get out of here. But anyway, so thanks everyone for watching, and tune in next week for my next one, which I will announce either today or tomorrow, whenever I get the graphic made. So see you next time.